Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video in my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be looking at case study reviews. This is something that has been highly requested by a lot of you. And I'm going to be starting a new series where I'm going to be going super in-depth in case studies and reviewing your projects. There's so much knowledge that you can learn from this. And you probably may not even need mentorship by anybody, and you can learn all of these things by yourself. That's the intent of this. Now, before I get started, make sure to check out my mega product design course for beginners if you haven't done already. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so there are a couple of prerequisites and disclaimers that I want to give before I actually get into the case study review. The first is that this is going to be a super intense and a serious video. It's not going to be like a simple video that, that's like sort of like an entertainment type. It's going to be super intense and serious because I'm going to be showing you how a product designer actually thinks like. The next one is that, which means that you're going to need laser focus, undivided attention. So please make sure that you have no distractions. You have all the time in the world and you're in a good state of mind, because you have to consume this knowledge and really understand what product design is and how to think like a product designer. And the next thing is that I want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm giving this feedback as constructive feedback. I'm not here to put down anybody, make fun of anybody, disrespect anybody. I'm giving this so that I can help you all become better designers. This feedback is going to help the person whose case study I'm reviewing and also everybody else watching this video. I gain nothing from making fun of people or putting down people. So please make sure that you take this as constructive feedback. I'm very straightforward with the way I give feedback, and I don't believe in sugarcoating things. I'm very straightforward with the way I give feedback. The next thing is I recommend everybody to watch this video at least 2 times, because it's going to be so overwhelming and it's going to have so much knowledge that you might miss out on a lot of things. So take your time, maybe watch the video again after a day or after a week or whatever it is, but make sure to watch it 2 times. And finally, this is going to be split into 2 parts. I don't know if it's going to be 2 videos or it's going to be in 1 video. I will figure that out later, but I'm just recording this in one shot. The first part is where I'm going to review the case study, and the second one is I'm going to tell you how I would fix the case study and solve the problems and go into super details of this. So let's get started. Now, if you haven't checked out my video on solving problem design statements, I highly recommend you check out that video. I prepared this sort of a framework. It's actually quite a big of a framework, and that's going to make it so easy and simple. And I'm going to show you, if you make mistakes in your case study, you won't be able to apply this framework that's there, right? And this is not the double diamond process. This is not some sort of a new process that's there. This is just trying to form a simple structure of how to think and how to connect the dots when solving a problem. Now, when I start reviewing the case study, I'm going to get into this, but basically to give a super quick overview, there are 5 buckets that you need to fill, and this is the first step of solving the problem statement. First, you need to decide what type of product. Then you need to understand what is the core problem. Then you need to understand who the core users are, any constraints and assumptions, and then business metrics. Now, I have an example over here. I'm going to show you that a little bit later when I start the case study, but I'm giving this context beforehand. Okay, so now let's dive into the case study. Okay, so this case study is written by Monish, and Monish has been kind enough to give me the permission to review his case study. So thank you, Monish, for doing that, and I hope you learn a lot from this video. And let's get started. So I'm going to read every single line, look at every single thing, and try to assume that I'm somebody who is going to recruit Monish into my company, and so I want to validate his skills and understand this case study in depth. So let's start. So Foody is a one-stop for recipes, shopping, and ingredients. So my first impression is that this app is to do with, some sort of recipes and shopping ingredients. I don't know how the app works, but it has something to do with food. That's something for sure. Then there's a very simple and straightforward hero image. It's not very ugly looking, so that's fine. And it's pretty decent. Okay. So now, what is Foody? So he's trying to form a story, and let me see if this story makes sense. Before explaining what Foody is, let me take you through a familiar scenario. On a fine Sunday, you are chilling on your couch and you decide to order something nice on Swiggy. Now, for the international audience, Swiggy is basically a food delivery app. That's it. So let's see it again. On a fine Sunday, you're chilling on your couch and you decide to order something nice on Swiggy. Unexpected guests show up at your home with their child. They decide to remain for lunch. Okay. You have to prepare lunch for them, and the child asks you to cook something. Okay. So the child here is asking the host to cook something. You have 3 options. You either don't cook it, you cook the dish, or you order the dish. Okay. Now you decide to cook the dish and not order it for whatever reason. That's fine. You don't know the recipe. Okay. Which is unfortunate. but it's cool because you can search it up on YouTube and choose from dozens of videos to follow. Okay. Now, I felt like there was a problem, but he's already mentioned the current behavior of it, which is searching it up on YouTube and choosing from a dozen of videos to follow. All right. So it looks like the problem is already solved, but let's see. Okay. You selected a video. Now, one thing that I really want to mention here is that it's so hard to read this paragraph because half of it is bold and half of it is not. Now, one simple design principle is that if everything gets attention, then nothing ends up getting attention, right? So in this case, what I would really suggest is to not bold like 50% of it because it's so hard for my eyes to glance and sort of look at where the sentence ends and where the sentence starts. So it's really bad experience over here for me to actually read this. Either follow bullet points or just bold very few sentences. Okay, so let's continue. So you selected a video and you start checking your refrigerator for the ingredients to prepare the dish and you couldn't find them. So you made the decision to order the groceries needed to make the dish. So here the person has made the decision to order the groceries in order to make the dish. As you don't have the recipe, you have to look at every single ingredient used by the dish by fast forwarding the video or looking up at the description of the video and selecting them one by one on your grocery store platform, which is time consuming. Okay. What if there is an app where you can order all the ingredients with a single click along with the curated recipes? I've tried to solve this problem with Foody and I will walk you through my process and the decisions I took throughout the project. Now, this story that Monish has mentioned is probably a use case that will almost never happen. Because if you have guests who come to your house, right? It's not like you're going to listen to what the child says because the child probably has parents. And this sort of a situation never even works because if this situation did happen, you would most likely cook food with ingredients that you know you already have, cook something that you know can turn out to be very great, and cook something that you're comfortable with and cook something that you can cook really fast, right? So my point here is that this story that you're actually saying is the wrong example to start with because this scenario can almost never exist. You are not going to take the hassle of trying to create and experiment something new and order groceries. Nobody's going to go through that effort because people who have come here to have lunch, which means you want to cook something really fast, something really tasty, something that you're really comfortable with, right? So the problem here is that this entire story is something that I would not consider to be valid. But let's move forward and make a few assumptions here. Now, what if there is an app where you can order all ingredients with a single click along with curated recipes? Okay. Now, the thing here is that Monish has already given the solution without explaining what is the core problem that we are trying to solve. Now, what does this mean? If I come back here to Figma, we have the first step, which is prepping the problem statement, right? You're trying to prepare the problem statement. And I'm going to take what Monish has mentioned in this case study and try to put that here. The first bucket is to define what is the type of the product. And in this case, we know it's going to be an app. So that is sorted. The next thing is what is the core problem? Now, the core problem here is something that is very unclear to me. And the third thing here is even the core users are something who is very unclear to me. Now, if I were to take an example of this chat experience of a luxury hotel, right? This is an example where you have to design an interactive chat experience for a luxury hotel. The core problem here is that it takes time for the guests of the hotel to get certain information or fulfill a request by the hotel staff. And the core users are guests of the hotel staff who actually want to get a request fulfilled or get some certain information. So in this case, it's very clear as to what the core problem is and what the core user is. But in this case, in Monish's case study, I'm not able to understand what is the core problem and who are the users. Because we have a story over here. And first of all, the story isn't considered to be a valid story. And he's not clearly defined what are the core intents and what are the core problems users have. Right? He's directly mentioned that what if there's an app where you can order all the ingredients with a single click. Okay. Now he's also mentioned the problem statement over here, right? So design a mobile app where people can order recipe boxes containing ingredients and instructions to cook a particular dish. Now this is a solution and not a problem. I've seen a lot of people do this where they talk about the problem statement, but then the problem but what they mention here ends up becoming the solution and not the problem. You're actually mentioning the solution, but what is the problem? Why does this product need to exist, right? You already mentioned here that, that you can search for it on YouTube and choose for dozens of videos to follow from, right? So what is the need for this, right? Is it just ordering ingredients? Because I can look at YouTube and identify the instructions to cook a dish, right? So I'm still trying to understand what is the problem. And this is a problem statement that he picked up from my Instagram account. So thanks for that. Now, there are some deliverables, which is fine. And now let's talk about research, right? So now the thing here is that the story is already disconnected, right? I'm still trying to figure out what is the problem and who the users are, okay? I wanted to explore the cooking space before diving into visual design. I read a lot of articles about people's eating habits and talked with my friends and stuff, and I'll be explaining the insights along with my visual design. Now, the thing here is that I've already mentioned in one of my previous videos where how to write a good case study. Recruiters don't care about what you did. They care about what did you learn from what you did. So the thing is, I'm looking for relevant insights and not what you did. So this paragraph again is not value to me as a recruiter. Now, coming down to the target audience, people who are just beginning to learn to cook, those who are looking for a recipe, and those who are simply experimenting. Now, this is still of a vague target audience, and this is very much contradicting to the story that he mentioned over here, because this story has nothing to do with this target audience, right? In that story, there was nothing about learning to cook and nothing to do with experimenting, right? So there is already a very big disconnect between the target audience and the story that he mentioned over here, right? So if I come back to Figma, these two things are still very unclear, which means there is no way I can progress to understand what you're going to explain the case study, because these two things are super critical. Now, to give an example of how this should be, now there's a part of the design process where you develop these user stories, which is basically the needs of the users, right? So this is an example of a different problem statement, right? I'm not going to go and explain what the problem statement is, but to quickly give you an idea, right? So there's a guy called Raj, and Raj wants to find a list of recommended cars for the user so that he can offer a good selection of choices. Raj wants to make note of customers' preferences so that he can show the features, benefits, and explain better the customer. Raj wants to find a way to help the customer make an informed decision. So here it's very clear as to what Raj's problem is and what his intent is. And that is something that I want to learn from and understand from this problem statement. What is it that the users want to do and who are they? Now, I'm going to talk about how this actually should be written in the second part of the case study, where I show you how I would do this. But coming here, I want to emphasize on the point that I'm still very confused as to who the target audience is. I know that you're saying it has something to do with ordering ingredients and, with curated recipes, but it's so hard for me to understand what this problem is all about. But anyway, let's go forward. The next is main goals, okay? After my thorough research, I identified pain points and issues that needed to be addressed, and I established a few objectives for Foody. Now, let's read them, right? The ability to easily navigate through the app, discoverability of new recipes inclined with regular habits, clean visuals, and seamless checkout to avoid drop-offs. Now, the thing here is that he mentioned that he avoided pain points, right? Now, these are not pain points. These are sort of requirements that pretty much every app on the planet needs to have. Now, the thing here is whether or not users tell, these are standard things that you need to follow, irrespective of which industry the app is in, who are the users, what they want to do. So this paragraph, again, in essence, is not valid for me. Next, he jumps into visual design. Now, I'm still very confused as to who the users are, what the problem is, and how the app works. I'm still very confused. All I know is that this is an app where you can order ingredients with a single clip along with curated recipes. That's all I know, but it's so vague and unclear as to who this product is for and why will somebody download this app. Okay. Now, he starts off with the home screen, and I'm going to make a lot of assumptions because I don't understand what the use case is. Right? There are 3 screens. Now, make sure to check out my video on how to upload high quality images on Medium, because here I see there's a lot of pixelation and it's really hard for me to understand. But I'm going to try my best to make a lot of assumptions over here. So here we have something called as the For You section. And then here you have something called as the More For You section. And then you have a bunch of categories. And then you have You May Like and Popular, And then you have something called as cooking bites. I have no idea what this is, right? Now here there are a lot of problems and mistakes. The first one says for you and the other one says more for you. So what is the difference between this, right? Why can't these two be combined? Because if all of them are for me, why are they two separate sections? And we also have a C all over here, right? So I don't understand what this is. Now I see here he says that it's 8 hours plus, right? First of all, I would just say 8 HRS instead of 8 hours plus. Like 8 hours plus is same as 10 hours is same as 20 hours, right? So there's no point in saying 8 hours plus. And I'm not very sure if this is actually the preparation time. I'm guessing that this is the preparation time to make this, but I don't think it actually takes 8 hours to make this. I'm assuming he's considering the time to prepare the batter and ferment it and all of that. So I'm not very unclear if this information is needed. Also, the other thing is that is information like 20 minutes, 10 minutes and 8 hours really needed? Next, you have the name of the dish, you have some rating, you have calories. Now, I don't understand why we have a data point for calories, because when talking about the users that we saw over here, there was nothing related to being health conscious. So I don't know if that's a data point that users actually want. Now, the thing is, I can't verify whether this design is right or wrong because I don't understand the problem and I don't understand the solution, right? So I'm trying to explain that again and again. Now, the other thing here is that isn't it important to have the price information, right? Because if this is something that I can buy ingredients for, shouldn't I have like the price information? And the price information is missing, which I believe would be the biggest mistake to do because price is a very important decision-making factor, right? But anyway, let's go forward. We looked at all of this. And the thing is, to be honest, I'm not sure what to understand from here. Then we have this, which is something called as try new section. And then we have something called as find chefs. I don't know what this is. And then we have explore. All right. So we have a list of items over here. Anyway, let me move forward. Okay. On the home screen. Now he's explained all of this. And again, as I mentioned over here, because half of it is bold and half of it is not bold, when everything gets attention, nothing ends up getting attention, right? So make sure you explain this neatly. And it's so hard for me to even read this because it pretty much feels like 80% of this paragraph is bold. On the home screen, I use catalog styled suggestions along with an infinity scroll. There's nothing called as an infinity scroll, by the way. It's called an infinite scroll. So make sure you get your terms right. Initially, I considered using an infinite scroll and worked on the recipe cards, but in the later stage, I decided to go. Now the thing here is that I'm not able to understand anything from this. Like just reading the text, I'm not able to understand anything, so I'm going to skip past it. Discoverability of new recipes inclined to the regular habits and new cuisines. Now the thing here is that I'm not able to make any sort of connection between what he's trying to say. Suddenly, he's talking about the concept of discoverability over here. But I'm just going to continue reading and see if I can make any sense. But how do you define the user's taste? Okay. Through my research, I discovered that certain significant factors influence people's eating habits and choices. Hunger, access, physical determinants like access, education. I don't know what this is. Social determinants such as culture, family, psychological such as mood and stress and attitudes, beliefs about the food, right? So I don't understand why this is important over here. Okay. But anyway, let's continue. To customize the homepage, I decided to ask users some questions when they sign up in order to learn more about the habits and show them recommendations based on that. So he's actually trying to now say that what you see on the home screen is going to be personalized. And I think he should have started off with this rather than showing the home screen, because the moment I see the home screen, look at the screens, I have no idea what I'm supposed to look at. I'm not able to understand any single thing from this. Okay. So let's try to look forward. So there are some onboarding questions. Okay. Now I'm a vegan, vegetarian and non-vegetarian. Now as a senior designer or recruiter, if I have to understand whether showing this is even required, understanding if this even makes sense or if this is a good design, I need to understand the problem and the user. But for that, I don't know. Because I don't know what the user's intent is, I don't know whether the screen makes sense to be shown to the user, right? So what I'm trying to say is that because these two things are still very unclear to me, I cannot validate any part of the case study. So let's go forward because I don't know how to validate that. Now here, it says, I eat mostly these things. Okay. Now another thing here is that small attention to detail. This is a very big red flag. You should never ever have mistakes in your designs. Like for example, here the bar is on the left and here it's on the right. And then here there's like a left arrow and chevron, but then here there's no chevron, right? So this is clearly a mistake. And now here he's saying mostly eat a lot of these things. Now, my question is, why should a user choose these items, right? Now, again, I cannot validate this because I don't know what the users want to do. Who are the users? Now, I feel there's some sort of a contradiction, because here in the target audience, he mentioned somebody who's looking to experiment. Now, if people are looking to experiment, don't you think that they would want to experiment all types of dishes, right? So if people want to experiment all types of dishes, why are you forcing them to select a few? So like I said, again, there is so much disconnect. Okay. Anyway, let's move forward. Then we have step 3, which is based on taste. And here it says, I'm allergic to eggs, milk, nuts, soya, fish, wheat, shellfish, etc. Okay. Now here again, this is contradicting to the story that he mentioned. So in this case, right, for example, you actually were in this case and you actually wanted to cook what the child wanted to cook, right? Are you really going to go to the child and ask the child these questions? Are you going to ask the child, hey, are you allergic to, allergic to eggs, milk, nuts, soya, right? Because the child has no idea, right? So I don't know how to validate as a recruiter or a senior designer, is this question even sensible to ask? And then finally, I am a beginner in cooking, intermediate in cooking, and advanced in cooking. Now you need to understand something over here, that this question is totally wrong. Because if I'm a user who wants to cook, let's say a rice item, I can be an advanced person. But if I want to make a very complex sweet or a very complex cake or a dessert, I'm going to be a beginner in that because I don't have experience. So what I'm trying to say here is that every human being who wants to cook is going to be a beginner, intermediate, and advanced depending on the type of dish. So asking this question makes absolutely no sense. And like I've been mentioning again, I don't know who the user is and what are their needs. But anyway, let's move forward. The home screen will be customized differently for each user based on the answers to the questions above. Okay. So here, based on the user's answers, the time they open the app, these two sections will have different recommendations. Now, I don't know how they will have different recommendations if you're saying both of them are for you. I feel that both of them are going to be the same. The other two sections, different recommendations aligned with the user interest and also dishes in different cuisines. So this is different cuisines, which is fine. But again, I don't know. Will users want this section? Who are the users? What is there in their mind? What is their intent? I'm missing all of that information, right? And then you have popular dishes over here. The question I as a recruiter will have is, are these sections relevant, right? And are the order of these sections correct? That is important for me to know. And without knowing who the user is, I will not know if the order of these sections are correct. And the other thing I'm seeing here is that these sections are being repeated again and again. So if you're anyway going to explain that over here, what was the need to show these screens that had basically no information, right? So I feel that the storytelling skills need to be really improved. And I still don't know why these two screens were here if you are anyway explaining the screens over here, right? Anyway, however, here's a catch. In order to customize the home screen, the user must sign up and log in, which is fine. But people might want to test the product first. And if they have an aha moment, they will return to the app. As a result, I must allow the users into the app without registering. Now he's thinking of an edge case over here, which is good. But let's see if the edge case makes sense. What about the recommendations? Do they get random recipes on the home screen, right? Because if you're not a user who has registered, then you are going to get random recipes. But he's saying no. If the user decides to explore the app, the recommendations will be based on the primary current location of the user, which is unique and interesting. And I have to persuade them to sign up by explaining why they should do and how easily to do it. So here again, I don't know if this solution is correct, because this solution can be correct and this solution can be wrong, but I will be able to validate that only if I know what the user's intent is, right? So let me take an example. So here he's saying the recommendations will be based on primarily their current location. Now, let's say I'm from South India and I know how to make South Indian dishes. But he also mentioned here in the top part that people who are simply experimenting. Now, as a South Indian, I might experiment South Indian dish and I might experiment North Indian dishes, right? So does that mean you're not going to show me North Indian dishes. If you come back over here, are you saying that you're not going to show me North Indian dishes? Maybe I want to make a North Indian sweet, for example, right? So let's look at here. So please sign up to customize the recommendations, right? Whatever. Now, here again, this design itself is very wrong, because here he's saying, please sign up and customize with recommendations, but you're showing for you. Now, for a user, when they say for you, they are going to assume that you know my preferences, but they don't know that the preferences are based on the location. And when they see customize based on recommendations, they're going to think, hey, if you are already showing me recommendations because you are saying for you, why are you asking me to sign up? Because it almost looks like you have my recommendations because I see a for you section, right? So this here is per user experience, because this is very confusing for the user. So now coming here to the recipe cards, we have a couple of states over here. I'm not going to look into it because they look like super straightforward over here. So here's some text. Let's try to read it. I've given the recommendation. The recipe will the recipe will be chosen by the user based on its name. Okay. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, fine. Now I think the language over here is very confusing. The recipe's name alone doesn't help the users make a decision. Yes, that is correct. The recipe card is a significant part which helps the user make a decision. It is also the entry point to the recipes. Now this sentence here itself is contradicting. He says the recipe's name alone doesn't help the users make a decision. And he's saying that the recipe card is a significant part which helps the user make a decision is also the entry point to the recipe, right? I'm really confused about this paragraph. Anyway, I try to understand how people choose a dish recipe while working on the information architecture. The name of the recipe alone does not assist users in making a selection. Okay, fine. The recipe card is an important component that assists users. So basically, he's just repeating the same paragraph again. I don't know why. And most likely, people are going to choose dishes based on the name of the dish, the time it takes to cook the dish, all right, and the calories received from people. And so here he's mentioning users, and now I'm being introduced to more user intents again and again. Now, if I look at this, I'm going to start questioning things now. Who are the users? Is it for health conscious people, right? Because who is your majority? Are majority people who have a diet or majority don't have a diet, right? Because if majority of people don't have a diet, I don't think it's relevant to show data points such as calories. I don't think that's needed. Maybe you can show calories in the details view and not on the card, right? And my other question here is price not a factor over here, right? And even if price is, what am I actually paying for? I'm really confused about that, right? So there is so much disconnect. Okay, so I'm not going to look into the iterations because there are way too many iterations, and I'm not going to look into it. I just care about the final one. And I don't know what is the final one, right? The thing is, if you're saying the recipe card, so typically I would want to see the final version of the recipe card here again. I mean, he showed it in the beginning and then he showed iterations. So I don't know what to make of this, but anyway. And now suddenly we jump into categories. This section is for helping users easily explore recipes from different categories, cuisines. And I think this is very, very straightforward. Pretty much every app on the world has like a section like this. So I don't really see the need to explain this. So I feel this is a little bit irrelevant. And now suddenly we come to cooking bites. Okay. After speaking with a few friends, I discovered that the majority of them use Pinterest, Instagram, and YouTube for exploring dishes. Okay. People save recipes for the future, and when finally the time comes to cook, they have to check on which platform they saved them on and go through the saved recipes. Okay. So I thought of making users post their photos of dishes they cooked, which will help others explore and save all the recipes in the same place. Now, this here is probably the most confusing thing that I've heard of over here, because first is, who are you solving this problem for now? What is the user's intent? Because in the beginning, here you're telling a story which has something to cook, all right? And you don't have the ingredients over here, and you have to go to the groceries, right? I thought that was the problem. And then later, he mentions that people who are experimenting or just learning to cook, which is a different set of user audience altogether. And then he mentions here that it is for people who follow a diet, which is another new intent. And fourth, we have people who like explore and who save recipes, right? So what is the problem in this case? Is it the problem that people are using multiple platforms? Or is it the problem that people are not able to explore correctly, right? here I'm very confused about what the problem is. And here he mentioned the solution is helping people explore new dishes by showing what others are cooking. Now, I don't even know why this is relevant. I feel like this is bloating the entire app by adding unnecessary features, right? Because if you actually want to help people explore, why don't you just show them carousels of recipes that are there in your catalog? Right now, I'm going to take another edge case over here. Let's say I see some sort of a very interesting pizza over here. If I click on it, will I actually be able to get the recipe of that? Are you going to provide me the recipe for this pizza dish that somebody posted? The other question I have here is that there is no concept of follower or following. This is not like Instagram where you can follow people. This is not a social media platform. And there can be millions of users, right? So how are you going to show the order? Because 1 million people might be using this app and 1 million people might be posting photos, right? And the thing here is, why will I care about what somebody else is cooking? Now, this feature may make sense, but the thing is, I don't know who the users of the app are. If I know what the users of the app want to do, I will know to validate this and I will say, yes, this makes sense for that specific user. But like I said, I'm still very unclear as to who the user is and what the core problem is. Now, the other thing here he's mentioned is that it helps users save all the recipes in the save place. What does that mean? What do you mean save recipes? How are users saving the recipes over here? Right? I still don't understand what that means. Anyway, now we have another new sudden section called as Find Chefs. Now, a person who just starting to learn to cook or an intermediate chef will encounter certain difficulties and have certain concerns like how much salt, spice or sugar is enough. I mean, isn't this going to be in the ingredients section? I don't know. How to stay motivated to cook. I don't know why this is a concern. Now, this again feels like a new user intent. And now I don't understand who this app is for, right? And food is sticking to the pan and many more, right? So this section will help users overcome those problems through professionals. Now, my question is, wouldn't a Google search solve this problem? Like if the food is sticking to the pan, wouldn't I go to Google and solve it? Why does that have to be in the app? Right? Why would somebody download an app just to get answers to these questions? Initially, I wanted to add articles from professionals, but I decided to go with videos instead because watching a video is more significantly handy and easier than reading articles. Like now, if video is a solution over here, I would rather go to YouTube and just search how to prevent food from sticking to pan. I would get my answers over there, right? Why would I download this app? So what I see here is there are a lot of features that are being added and making the app bloated. And now I've completely lost track of who the app is for. Okay. And now even till now, I don't understand the concept of the app because I don't know how, because the concept of ingredients has still not been brought into picture, right? So I'm very lost, but I'm going to go again. And now suddenly we have the search page. All right. Again, I see a couple of screens. I'm not really sure what to understand from this. Okay. So I'm going to skip this. Again, I see a bunch of screens over here. Now, new items are being explored on the search page, and as a result, having a search option should be mandatory, which is fine. It's obvious that you would have a search experience. Ability to easily navigate through the app and find desired dishes, which is obvious. Foody is a browsing platform similar to YouTube or Netflix. I don't know why this has anything to do with OTT platforms. You can consider this to be Amazon as well, or it could be an app where you can buy clothes, or it could be even a food delivery app. So I don't know why this is similar to Netflix and YouTube. It means users may explore recommendations and also search for specific recipes, obviously. So in addition to the home screen, the search should be given unique priority. So rather than having the search option on the home screen, I chose to make it a tab. Now, I feel that this makes no sense to me in a way, because I would rather have a search bar on the home screen itself, and I don't know why we need a search tab. And fine that you're showing you have a search tab, but then the logic that you're giving here to explain why there's a search tab doesn't make sense, right? And I don't know what is the connection that it has with YouTube or Netflix, because if you think about YouTube, YouTube doesn't have a search tab. YouTube has a search bar and a search icon on the top navigation bar, right? So you're giving the wrong example and you're giving a contradicting solution, right? So here again, things are wrong. Let's go forward. Search results. This is one of the most frequently visited areas by users. The results page should be relevant to the user's search. If no results are discovered, a cleared message. I mean, these are things that are not relevant at the point. I have used infinite scroll as results may come under a single category, and also adding another section called popular with containing recipes, so that whatever, right? So basically what he's trying to say, and I think he's explaining all the things over here. I'm going to skip past this because these are like adding filter, applying filter, which is not relevant. I think here, this is something that I found interesting where he searched for biryani and now you have other items over here which are popular with biryani. I think this is a nice feature to have. So that's interesting. This is the only thing that I found very interesting over here. Anyway, let's go back. Now we have the recipe screen. So coming to the main section, the recipe screen is the vital part where the user interacts the most, and also for the business, because this is where the user orders the recipe box from. So now we are understanding that this is how you can order a recipe box, which is quite late. I should have understood how this works right in the beginning. Okay, so the recipe screen has 4 parts: ingredients, recipe, tools, and reviews. Okay. Now, when I click on this, I see there's so much of information, but let's try to understand. So you don't have to explain things that are obvious. Obviously, this looks like a recipe video, which is fine. Description about the dish, which is obviously very obvious. Real-time price for the recipe box also, which is very obvious. And ingredients listing, which is also very obvious. Now here I have a lot of questions. Now the first thing, this is the first time I'm actually looking at the price. This is the first time I'm actually looking at the price information. So when I see 175, my question is, what am I paying 175 for? Right? Is it ingredients? Is it the recipe? Or what is it that I'm paying for? Okay. And now my other question, is it 175 for one serving? So my question is, if I make this 2 servings, is this going to become 350? I don't know how this works. Okay. Now here, he's saying that select all the options, select all the ingredients, and here there's a lot of typo over here, so make sure there are no typos. Ingredients selected state for adding to the cart, right? So now the thing that's so weird here is that you're forcing me to add these items to the cart. Now, let me explain something in a very realistic scenario. When I am actually making this dish, right? And I've made biryanis before, so I know you're probably going to need probably 2 tablespoons or 2 teaspoons of ghee and maybe 3 tablespoons or big scoops of curd, right? So now, here you're saying 200 grams of curd, which is very weird because are you going to sell me 200 grams of curd and are you going to sell me 40 ml of ghee? I don't know that. And does that mean if I remove some options, let's say I have curd at home already, let's say I have ghee at home already, are you going to reduce the price for me? I don't know how that works. I have a lot of these questions. Okay. And now here again, please watch that video where I show you how to upload videos on Medium. Very important video because here it's so hard for me to understand. And here is basically in the recipe tabs. And as you can see, it's so pixelated, so I can barely see anything. The recipe is divided into steps and instructions along with an image over here, which is like fine. And now I'm assuming that without paying, I can look at the recipe and the ingredients and all and the steps, right? I find this very confusing because am I now paying money only for the ingredients? Like if that is the case, I would rather use an app where I can just order ingredients, right? I could use probably a food delivery app and then pick items from there. Why am I downloading this app if I just have to buy ingredients, right? I do not understand what the business model is. Now here you have utensils. So added utensils option to easily know what tools are used, which is like fine, and ratings, which is like, okay, cool. Cool. Next, ingredients tab. Clean visuals and concise copy. I mean, I don't know why this is only for the ingredients tab. They should be there pretty much for the entire app. I wanted to show ingredients that can be added to a cart rather than a list. So also try to differentiate it from the tools tab. I don't know what this means, but I can see like there's like a selected state and like an unselected state, which is fine. For adding ingredients to cart, I considered pre-selecting items, right? So now this makes sense. If I am paying 175 rupees for all the ingredients, it makes sense to pre-select it, right? Because here I haven't selected anything, but you're still saying 175 rupees. So now I don't know what I'm paying 175 for, right? So let's read this again. After adding ingredients to the cart, I considered pre-selecting items, asking customers to deselect them when adding to the basket. Now this method is easy of deselecting, but this could be a dark pattern because sometimes we might not deselect ingredients which we already have, and those would be a waste after receiving them. Or the other way is that users are used to picking things manually in grocery shopping, so I decided to use this method. So if you're saying that users have to pick items, don't you think that all of these have to be selected for it to say 175 rupees, right? So let's say there are 10 items and I chose 5 items. Do I have to pay half of this? I don't know how this works. Now we have the recipe video. So while working on the recipe section, I decided to lock the recipe video, right? And make it available only when users purchase the recipe box, and after that the video would be available to them at any time, right? So here it would make sense for me to actually lock the video and get access to the video only after I purchase, right? I think that would make a lot of sense. But then he says that when I asked users, how do you use YouTube or Pinterest? Some of my friends said they decide to cook something new after seeing the recipe on YouTube to find out whether it matches the taste or not. Prefer videos with detailed descriptions. While watching YouTube, we can easily skip to the future steps. And all of these are current behaviors. That's fine. And now here, the stats of videos on YouTube are crazy, right? So now there are millennials watch 30% of food content on YouTube. Now, I don't know if you're targeting millennials. Now, that's something I don't understand because I still don't understand who the users are. 75% of the growth comes from mobile devices. We're already designing an app, so I don't know why this information is relevant. Interest in cooking skill videos is on the rise, with watch time increasing with more than 100. So I don't know what you're trying to say over here. What is the inference from this? So I went with free recipe video in order to reach a new audience, that is people who enjoy watching culinary videos in their spare time. So now this is a brand new user group, right? So now I'm so confused. Who are you solving this for? Who will become our biggest customers at some point? If they decide to cook something, they will come to us. Now, I totally disagree with this, because if YouTube is already solving this problem, why will users open this app? Is it just to order ingredients? I don't think so, right? This business model, okay? So here is showing, without recipe and with recipe, right? So if I'm paying $175 not for the recipe and just for ingredients, I would just use a grocery delivery app and just order from there. Now, suddenly we have the cart. We have reached the end of the flow. To eliminate dropouts, we must constantly remind users to complete their orders. Furthermore, when on the cart page, users may choose to delete either an entire recipe box or certain items, which is, this is obvious. So recipe box name along with the number of ingredients, which is like fine. So here again, right? If 11 ingredients, I'm paying $155. Am I going to be paying less if I pick like 5 ingredients? I don't know how that works. Okay. And for example, here in this case, right? Let's say there are 12 ingredients. If I need, let's say I just want ginger garlic paste and biryani spices. Maybe I don't have this. Do I still have to pay $175? That's weird, right? Because I can probably get this for $20. So why will I pay $175? Now there's so much of text over here, and I don't really know if I want to go and read this, but it doesn't look like I'm going to understand it. This is like way too much text and so much is bolder, so I'm going to skip it. And coming over here, a pop-up message with a message that says whether to add the item to the cart or replace. Okay, these are basically like basic UX and interaction design problems. So I'm not really going to look at that. And then we finally have additional screens, and these are like login screens, and this is like login flow. And these are not important. After the order plays, it says that your order is being picked up or whatever, and learnings and challenges, right? So coming back to Figma and looking over here, this problem statement needs to be fixed quite a bit. And I'm still stuck here. What is the core problem? And what is the core user, right? Because if I would come and try to make this user story like, Raj wants to, I really don't know how to make the user story, because I don't know what the user wants to and who the user is. So that comes to the end of the case study review. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I would go ahead and approach solving this problem. So I have a couple of things to show you over here. So I'm going to start off by one. So I'm just going to go ahead and just reduce down the opacity of this. Now, the first thing that I would do is try to understand the current behavior of users before understanding what their needs, what the problems are, and how do I solve it, right? So the first thing here is that currently people who want to cook, some items, they watch YouTube to identify recipes, and they usually take a lot of time to browse, and they read comments, and then they watch the video, and then they take a decision, right? So they go through YouTube, they browse a lot, they look at multiple YouTubers, and then they see the recipes, and then they figure out which one they want, right? That's the current behavior. Some users know that they have all the ingredients that you need to make a particular dish, but they want the recipe, right? Let's say, for example, you want to make cake. You pretty much know all the ingredients that you're going to need, right? Maybe you might not have 1 or 2 ingredients, but that's okay. But if you go look at your fridge or your kitchen, you're going to know what and all is there, what and all is not there, right? But what's important for them is they want like the recipe to make it correctly and want to make it well, right? That's the thing. And the third thing is And some other users don't really care about the ingredients. And if they need to buy ingredients, they're just going to go and buy it. So they go to the stores themselves, or they buy it online or on grocery platforms. Although grocery platforms may not have all the types of ingredients, right? So the thing is here is that there's a little bit of a manual effort that's needed. A little bit of decision making that's needed. It's time consuming, right? Now, this is the current behavior. Now, what we want to do is we want to take these users and then we want to make it simple for them, right? Make all of these steps a little bit easier for them. Okay. So here is the first step of my 5 buckets, right? So if I show you this, we have 5 buckets over here and I'm going to fill these up right now. So how would I do it? So, coming up with just like the concept, designing an app to order curated recipe boxes. Okay, that's sort of the idea. Now, the first thing here is the type of product. Let's make it a mobile app. Now, this could also be an iPad app as well. It would make more sense to have it as a mobile app or an iPad app. So maybe I'm just going to say mobile app / iPad, or maybe I'm going to say tablet app. Okay. Then the second is core problem. The thing here is that people who often love to cook are often trying to learn and experiment creating new dishes. They watch a lot of YouTube videos and follow professional chefs. And I'm probably going to say professional chefs, and I'm also going to say popular chefs. Okay. And these could be like influencers or YouTubers who are, like great at cooking, but they may not be like super professional. However, finding these recipes and getting the exact ingredients can be a pain since they want everything to be perfect. Right? I'm just giving the overall core problem. We can dive into so much more details, but this is sort of like the overall problem. The thing is finding these recipes, and I'm going to say finding the right recipe and getting the exact ingredients can be a pain since they want everything to be perfect. And they want the best recipe ever, right? And the other thing here is that they want someone who they can trust, right? So I'm just giving like the core overall problem over here. The third thing is, who are the users actually? Now, these I would say are cooking enthusiasts who want to learn from the best chef in the world. They're often inspired by TV shows like MasterChef, right? I'm giving one of the core user. Now, who are cooking enthusiasts? We can sort of figure that out a little bit later, but this is something like an overall idea, right? And maybe I'm just going to remove MasterChef over here. Maybe that's going to be a little confusing, but cooking enthusiasts who want to learn from the best chefs in the world. Or we can even say cooking enthusiasts who want to learn to cook amazing food, right? Now, the thing here is when it comes to cooking enthusiasts, it doesn't mean they have to be foodies. They can be like people who like to cook as well, right? Or I can even say people who enjoy cooking, who want to create, right? Now, all of this is so overall and it's quite vague in nature, but we're getting like a easier idea, right? We're going to get into the core aspect of who are the core users a little bit later. Then we have constraints and assumptions. Now here I haven't explained how the app works, what are the business model and things like that. So this is going to be decided later. And also since we don't understand how the app works, metrics also we cannot define now. We can define that a little bit later. So the next thing is defining the user and the user story. Now to basically understand what this is, right? So we get into the details about who the user is and form a user story around them that makes it easy for anyone reading the problem statement to empathize with the user and imagine how it feels for them, right? There are 3 things that are contained: who they are, what they want to do, and why they want to do it. So these are the 3 things that you need to have in a user story. So now this is the persona. This is not the user story, but this is sort of like a persona. Mr. X is a hardcore foodie who loves to eat and cook food. He has spare time during weekends as he's very busy throughout the weekday. I'm gonna say weekdays here. Okay. He has been cooking ever since he was a child. He follows TV shows like MasterChef and always tries to create dishes that he sees on the show, right? This is one type of a persona. Moving another one, Mrs. X is a housewife who cooks a lot on a daily basis for her husband and 2 kids. This is going to be she is an excellent cook and has been cooking for a very long time. But time to time, she likes to try something new on special occasions like festival or a birthday, right? Simple personas. Now, this is where things get super interesting, and this is where you need to use in pretty much your entire brain. Now, I'm going to look at what Mr. X wants. Mr. X wants to spend his weekends learning to cook different types of food, but he wants to learn from the best chefs in the world. Okay. Mr. X wants to cook with the perfect and right ingredients and the right recipe. Okay. I'm going to add another one. Mr. X wants to stop spending time on YouTube, searching for the best recipes, as it's very time consuming and some videos are not clear and helpful enough, right? That's the one. If you look at another one, Mrs. X, she wants to cook something nice for her kids for Christmas, maybe like a dessert. Gonna be a double S. Okay. Mrs. X wants to ensure that she follows the perfect recipe that famous chefs follows. Now, these may not be professional. They might just be like famous. All right. And she wants to cook with the perfect and right ingredients and the best recipe. Right. And we can also say that Mrs. X, she also wants to cook dishes in the simplest ways possible. Okay. She wants the easiest recipes, but not everything is going to be easy because some dishes need to be complex. Anyway, right? So here I'm sort of creating a user story and try to show what is it that they really want to do. Okay. Now coming to the solutions, I have a lot of things over here. So let's go look at it one by one. Now, one of the solution could be that the app or whoever is the owner of the app or the designer of the company collaborates with these popular chefs and master chefs where they give out their signature recipes as a video tutorial. It's sort of like a masterclass sort of a thing, but master chefs. Now, what this ends up solving is that need or use case where people, just keep consuming and, going through YouTube and spending so much time. And for them to trust somebody, if you just tell them that, you're going to learn from the best popular chefs, right, all over India or all over the world, that would make it so much easier for users to come to this app because these are things that you cannot find publicly on YouTube, right? Master chefs and popular chefs may not give out their signature recipes on YouTube. Maybe sometimes they do, maybe sometimes they don't, but this will be a very good USP of the product. Next. The app will have a subscription plan where they can get access to all the recipes in the entire app, or they can just get access to a particular chef. All right. That's one. Now, with regard to getting the ingredients, there are two approaches. The subscription plan offers you to get delivery of the ingredients for free for a limited amount of recipes, right? Let's say, for example, you get like a subscription and you can get a maximum of 5 sets of ingredients for free for a certain set of recipes, right? You will get all the ingredients for 5 recipes and you can choose which one that you want, okay? And you can go with bigger plans, and higher the plans, higher will be the free deliveries, right? So now, if users don't want to buy a subscription, right, they can choose to buy individually per recipe as well. Now, the other approach is if we don't offer ingredients in the subscription plan, the subscription plan is going to be only for the content, which is the video tutorial. And if users want the ingredients, they can individually buy it per recipe, right? So we have 2 different types of approaches of how we can handle the part of getting the ingredients. Okay. Then the recipe will have only the list of ingredients, but not the cooking method, right? I'm just going to say cooking method, right? The reason we don't want to give out the cooking method is because since it's a subscription plan, anybody who opens the app will be able to watch the tutorial right there, right? But we will obviously show them the list of ingredients that are there and also the cooking utensils that you need. Maybe do you need an oven? Do you need a pressure cooker? Do you need something else? I don't know, right? You can choose to buy the core ingredients, okay? Only the core ingredients and not things like curd or ghee or salt, right? The thing is, if we only let the user, buy the ingredients, only the core ingredients, they don't have to think about small things like ghee, curd and salt, right? Because Pretty much every household is going to have these basic ingredients. Okay. Now this reduces the cognitive load for the user because they don't have to make decisions. They don't have to individually select items. They just have to say, yes, I want ingredients, or no, I don't want ingredients. And these are the core ingredients. Next. Now, whatever is going to be delivered per recipe, right? This items is going to be sufficient for 10 servings, right? If you want to make, let's say, some sort of a rice item and you want to buy the ingredients for it, you're going to get a fixed set, which is sufficient for 10 servings, right? So in this case, the user does not have to pick how many servings. We can set a standard saying that the items are going to be sufficient for 10 servings, right? So that's that. This also includes things like utensils and equipment such as butter paper for making cakes. I'm just taking a simple example, right? You can also choose to buy the utensils over here. And finally, there won't be any concept of rating because all of these are going to be by the best chef in the world. So pretty much all of these are going to be great. It's just which chef do you want to prefer and whose style do you like and what sort of dishes do you want to make, right? So this is how I would go ahead and start solutionizing and come up with all of these solutions. So now I'm going to take you back to the case study and tell you how we would fix a lot of these things. So right from the beginning, right, I already spoke about the problem statement, the solutions and all of that, right? And I'm going to get into the screens. Now, the first thing is the home screen. What do we show on the home screen? And for that, I have the categories that I want to show on the home screen. The first thing is I'm going to have a global filter to filter out veg and non-veg recipes. Okay. And egg is also going to be considered a part of veg, or we can have a separate one which says include eggs or something like that. Okay. Then we're going to have a list of popular chefs on the home screen. Think of it as artists of a music platform like Apple Music or Spotify. Then we're going to have separate carousels and separate rows for types of dishes, like for example, dishes where you have to use oven or pressure cooker or 10-minute quick recipes or breakfast recipes or festival delicacies or frozen items. We could even say regional recipes that are, specific for a particular region and things like that. Right? So here on the home screen, we're giving a lot of options to the user to browse and find things that they want. Now, this is definitely going to help the user over here who is Mr. X, all right? And he likes to try and create new dishes, right? So we can show different types of dishes to that person. Okay? Now, coming back to the case study. So that was the home screen. Now, all of these questions I'm removing because this adds a lot of unnecessary friction to the user. And because in our case, the users are usually always trying to try out new recipes. Stuff like this doesn't really matter. They're open to all of this, right? There's no need to customize anything over here. Then moving on to the next one, which is the recipe cards. Yes, of course, these are recipe cards. And now on this time, the recipe cards, we will not have the price because it's a subscription model. So you buy the subscription and then you can watch whatever you want and get access to all the ingredients or whatever it is, right? Depending on how we set up the subscription plan. Okay, that and then categories. I already mentioned about the categories, right? And then so this thing called cooking bites, this whole feature is not going to exist in the app, right? Because we don't need anything like that. And things like Find Chefs, also we will not need to show that because the recipes are going to be good enough. The video tutorial created by the master chefs are going to be good enough, so all the questions will be solved over there. The search experience is going to be simple and straightforward. Nothing too fancy over here. I would still go ahead and add this approach. I like this. This is pretty cool. Then moving forward is you have search results. Again, this is a part of search. Then you have the recipe screen. So here in the recipe screen, we would not have servings. This would have a subscription plan and there won't be a price for anything. You will have to buy a subscription plan if you want access to the recipe. But you will get an idea of what the recipe is about, how much time it's going to take. You can look at all the ingredients, not like this, just a list of the ingredients. There will not be a recipe because if we give the recipe, then the whole point of the app becomes a waste. Obviously, the tools are going to be there and there won't be any ratings. I think if you come down here, let me just check that. Yep, we won't have any ratings over here because it's by the best chefs, right? So it's going to be very obvious that all of these items are going to be amazing. Okay. So then we won't have the ingredients tab, and then the recipe video. This is like a lot of information that is unnecessary. And then cart again. So here again, we won't have this concept of, a number of ingredients and stuff like that. It's going to be super simple and straightforward because it's going to be a subscription plan, right? And what else do we have? Additional screen, this is fine, right? So this is pretty much how I would go ahead and solve this entire problem statement on my own. It's a very interesting approach. It's a very different approach, but as you can see, it's very important to understand what the current behavior is, pull out the problem statements from there, identify who you want to actually solve for. Then you go ahead and put out the user story. This is the most critical, important part ever that you need to think about. This is the most critical thing, because if you get this wrong, you cannot design any sort of a solution. And then depending on all of this, you figure out what the solutions are. Try to make it as simple as you can for the user. Now, and you will know only how to make solutions if you understand what users want and who they are. And then this is just related to the UX aspect of it. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So till then, take care and bye-bye.